Kenya is recalibrating its relationship with Russia at a delicate moment in global geopolitics. Foreign Minister Musalia Mudavadi is in Moscow for high-level talks with his counterpart Sergey Lavrov, focusing on trade, labor cooperation, and crucially the fate of Kenyan nationals reportedly recruited to fight in Russia-Ukraine war. Nairobi says that Moscow has now agreed to halt the recruitment whilst efforts are underway to bring affected citizens back home. But beyond this immediate issue, the visit does raise broader questions about Kenya's foreign policy direction and Africa's positioning in an increasingly polarized world. Well, to unpack this, I'm now joined by Gordon Kachola, who's a foreign policy analyst and CEO of the Africa Center for Diplomatic Affairs in Nairobi. Thank you very, very much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Peter.
All right, so first of all, how significant is this visit by Mr. Mudavadi and for Kenya's diplomatic engagement with Russia?
Well, the visit doesn't come as a surprise. The visit in itself, I would say, is long overdue, based on the developments that have been happening across between these two countries. Remember, Kenya has always pronounced non-aligned, has always projected itself as an unaligned country. However, in action, Kenya has always been pro-West. Lately, from the year 2013 onwards, Kenya has always taken a position of, we are neither looking east nor west, we are looking forward. Whoever wants to do business with us will come to us and we will go to them. So I don't think this is late. I think it is timely, and also based on the fact that we've had recently many young Kenyans go to Russia and are enlisted in the military. Some unknowingly they leave their country here in Kenya, go to those places, just later on to be told that, hey, you are already recruited into the military. I think that alone was worth a negotiation between these two countries so that Kenyans don't lose their lives in a war that they have nothing to do with.
It is interesting that this development has taken place where Russia has said that it would stop recruitment. I think there were denials at some point that they were doing this, and it sounded as if there were private institutions that were moving people in and out of the country and ending up on the front line. Beyond Kenya, might this have a ripple effect with other African countries facing a similar situation, South Africa being one of them?
Definitely. We all understand the fact that how missionaries work. No country go directly to recruit. They get a company that definitely will recruit people or enlist people into the military. So there is nowhere where a country directly gets involved in this. But now, Kenya taking this step will definitely make other African countries to also say, hey, we don't want our people get into this. So it is now upon the company or the organization that is enlisting these young people, because no country gets into that directly. So it's upon the organization that is enlisting these young people to now put a halt into that, so that they also do not jeopardize the relationship of Russia and other African countries. As you now know, that Russia is looking into Africa more than ever. You look at the Central African region, Russia is seemingly taking over from other colonialists. So it is almost certain that this may tilt how the enlisting into the Russian military happens within Africa. But having said that, I think it was also time for Kenya to do this, because remember, Kenya's main export is tea and coffee. That is its backbone of in terms of exportation. And then another one that is cropping up hugely today is people who workforce. Kenya tries to take a lot of its citizens out there to work, and the remittances are huge. I think today remittances from Kenyans abroad back to Kenya go to almost 1 trillion Kenyan shillings. So that is something that they can't ignore. They want to protect their people who are outside the country. But remember, when the war in Sudan broke, Kenya lost a market in tea. Now, Kenya is also losing a market in Iran in terms of tea and coffee. So they can't stand and watch as they are losing market in tea and coffee. They will have to find an alternative. If you look at the import of Russian coffee, it's almost over 15 billion US dollars a year. In that, Kenya has only roughly 46 million US dollars a year. So Kenya is looking at how can we again find alternatives for our produce that we export in Russia and other countries, because we've lost that in some of these countries. So I think even this issue of enlisting young Kenyans into the Russian military came just as a by the way, and a strong by the way, having noted that Kenya is losing markets due to the global catastrophes in war, and now they have to find alternatives for their exports.
Right. So this is the other strategic objectives that Kenya might be pursuing then between the two countries. Apart from trade, what else might be on the table?
We all know that after independence, there was the first Kenyan vice president, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, was a communist in aligning. He was a communist in thought, communist in action. And that tells you why in his backyard, where he comes from, that the western part of Kenya, the Russians built one of the biggest medical facility, which is today a level 6 facility, one of the highest medical facilities. And for the longest, it was called Russia Hospital. So Russia lost that to the Westerns after the exit of Jaramogi from power and subsequently his death. And they are trying to find a foot here in Kenya and the rest of Africa. Just like today, you realize that France is trying to find foot in East Africa after its fair share of trouble within the West Africa. And they have spotted Kenya as a possible landing site for the East African region, the larger Eastern African region and the Great Lakes region. So even Russia is trying to find a foothold within the Eastern African region. And who is better suited for that if not Kenya? So they have spotted Kenya, and I think these conversations will go deeper. In the coming days, we may see Minister Lavrov, Minister for Foreign Affairs, Lavrov come to Kenya, and subsequent visits may be with President William Ruto to Russia, so that to deepen some of these ties and get what they can get. It's a give and take from Russia.
I know that at the beginning you said that Kenya had always chosen to be non-aligned, but there's no question that Kenya and the US have enjoyed an especially close relationship. Could this be Russia trying to muscle in on this relationship? And I wonder if the US is looking at this visit by Kenya to Russia and saying, yeah, but remember who your friends are.
If you're a Christian, you also know that even if truly hell exists, which some of us believe it does, even the devil itself would not want to be dethroned from hell. So no one wants to be dethroned from their seat of power. Definitely, America will not sit pretty. You remember last time when President Ruto went to China and had an official state visit, it brought a lot of trouble, and there was there were threats in the US Senate that they need to relook into the Kenyan-US relationship. Even this, definitely it will bring trouble to Kenya, at least to some degree, because Kenya has always pronounced herself as non-aligned, but in action, no. Kenya is never non-aligned. Though in pronunciation, that has been the case. I know definitely for sure that should this kind of conversation, negotiation intensify, and should it appear that Russia is gaining foot here in Kenya and the region, East Africa, because Kenya is the gateway to East Africa, definitely it will brew some trouble from the Western partners of Kenya.
All right, Gordon, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Your insights greatly appreciated on the program.
Thank you very much, Peter.
That was Gordon Kachola, foreign policy analyst and CEO of the African Center for Diplomatic Affairs in Nairobi, talking to us about this visit by Kenya to Russia and bringing back home their boys that are caught in the Russia-Ukraine war, and also stopping the recruitment of others.
Africa.